Hi everyone, thanks for joining me. Joining me today is the editor of the interregnum.net and independent journalist who has had his work published in The Canary and Sputnik and Open Democracy and The Real News and the Grey Zone Project. That's quite a CV he's got. He's my friend. It's Mohammed El-Matsi. How are you, Mohammed? How are you?
Hello. Good to be here. Thank you.
So I say it's Mohammed El-Mazi. It's not El-Matsi. It's my apologies for that. So Mohammed, now about a week ago, at your request, I went with you to see a movie that was premiered last week called The Great NHS Heist. This is a film by Dr. Bob Gill and Drew McFadden. Now, you weren't the only one who was pushing me to go and see this movie. You may remember at the Free the Truth event that I met you at a few days before, one of my supporters was badgering me to go and see this movie. She would not leave me alone until I promised I was going to see it. So I went and saw it on Saturday, and honestly what I saw, it blew my mind, and it almost it confirmed to me everything that I was worried about that the governments have been doing in this country for decades with our NHS.
The NHS is not for sale and it never will be.
The privatisation lobby basically gets underway under Mrs Thatcher.
Electricity, water, gas, the mines, the railways.
Even if you only care about efficiency, the National Health Service should be preserved like a jewel.
There's a sphere of influence that is shared across public and private sectors, and the revolving door of course swings both ways.
What the big four accounting firms do is really quite deadly.
PFI has transformed our hospitals into away from actually caring for people and into a means of making profit from the public sector.
Our National Health Service, one of Britain's proudest achievements. Lifting burden from the sick, copied across the world and celebrated in our Olympic ceremony. A complicit media, having failed to hold power to account, now busily report NHS failures after years of financial squeeze. Consecutive governments have secretly prepared it for corporate takeover. After years of erosion, the NHS, its budget and very fabric up for grabs. There will be no share offering, no adverts on the side of a bus. This is a robbery for its new corporate masters in the Great NHS Heist.
The big American health corporations and American health insurers and the American drug companies are absolutely, they're salivating.
These companies are in the business to make money.
Giant corporations, they get caught in fraud and they pay the ticket and keep on speeding.
So they're always vigilant to try to avoid paying for care in one way or another.
They were literally kidnapping psychiatric patients and holding them against their will until the day their insurance ran out.
Here in the United States, you might as well be on the moon for the opportunity that you would have to get the care that you need.
No one should ever copy the system.
It is in the sights and the target of the multinational corporations.
So that's the trailer for this movie that Mohammed and I saw last week, and it's actually available on YouTube right now. The address is on your screen and the link is in the description. You must go and watch it. Now, before it was made available for free for you to watch before the election, Mohammed and I had scheduled this conversation because we wanted to talk about just the importance of this movie. Hi, Mohammed. Tell me what motivated you to get behind this film so much and to promote it as much as you've done, and why is it important to you?
Well, I ran into Dr. Bob Gill and Drew a couple of years ago now, just completely by chance, and they were with another GP activist, Yusuf El-Ginni, who wrote a book, How to Dismantle the NHS in 10 Easy Steps, which is an excellent book, well worth getting, well worth reading. And the book, like the film, describes in forensic detail the process by which the National Health Service has been slowly but surely undermined, dismembered, parceled out, outsourced, privatized over about 40-year time period by successive governments from Margaret Thatcher's non-stop via the New Labour era up to the current government, the current Boris Johnson government that we have today. And because things like a national health service are far easier to save than they are to perhaps rebuild from scratch after they've been fully dismantled and fully privatized, I think it's especially important for people to be informed about what's going on to help inform their voting choices. You know, the electoral system is an imperfect system. It's not designed to assist, shall we say, the masses to get their way. So by design, elections are there to prevent democracy, not to promote it or facilitate it. But at the same time, there are differences within the parties. And I think it's quite clear that how this election goes will determine whether the road we have ahead of us is more or less difficult in terms of reversing the damage that has been done to the National Health Service. I mean, this is something that affects every man, woman, and child in this country, and quite frankly, countries around the world, irrespective of whether they vote or not, irrespective of whether they individually get sick, because of course we have friends, we have families, we have businesses. And all of these are affected by the health and well-being of our friends, family, neighbors, and countrymen, as it were. And there's, of course, the fact that people, rightly or wrongly, still point to the UK, say, for example, from the United States, as a model that to be copied. Because, you know, as you know, Gordon, in the United States, people are fighting. Many people have been fighting for many years, going back to the birth of social democracy in the United States under FDR, the presidency of FDR in the 1930s. People have been fighting to establish a universal healthcare system free at the point of service. And they don't have that. And millions, literally millions of people have gone bankrupt in the United States over the years, first and foremost because of medical bills. So, and that's where we're headed, right? So even people who have health insurance, who have private health insurance in the United States, still find themselves, I don't know if people understand the system here, like the American system. You still have to shell out money, even though you might have private health insurance. You have to pay money, they call them co-pays and deductibles and all these other things. They can go up to thousands of dollars. And even people who have private health insurance can still lose their homes due to medical bills. It's the #1 reason cited in the United States for people defaulting on their mortgages. So just think about that. So that is why I think it's especially important for people to understand what's going on, whatever reservations they may have with certain political parties. Some, well, let's just be clear. Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party, you're pushing against an open door in terms of reversing privatization. Corbyn has always been opposed to these policies of privatizing the National Health Service, even though, you know, chunks of the Labour Party establishment were behind him. Obviously, Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, as the film isn't nonpartisan, right? So it doesn't shy away from critiquing or criticizing or pointing out, simply just pointing out the policies implemented under New Labour. They make it very clear that this was, you know, that you can see that this was a 40-year trend that's non-stop.
Yeah, you mentioned the American healthcare system there, and how you've got these deductibles and co-pays built into the system. I just want to quickly, I always tell this story because I have a friend. He's one of the most decent people I've ever met in my life. He really helped me at the lowest point in my life. Really great guy. And he's a singer, really great singer. He sings at clubs and venues around California. And he was working in a car spraying company, you know, one of those panel spraying things where he has to wear the mask and what have you. And I remember saying to him, why have you got that job then? You know, he says, oh, I don't need it for the money. He said, you know, the gigging, my singing actually does pay the bills. He said, but what it doesn't pay is the health insurance. He had to take a job. His job it was better for him to take this little crappy job because it came with health insurance than it was to obviously pay out. And he got sick, he got cancer, and had a $6,000 deductible that he had to pay for his treatment, and he had to go on GoFundMe and raise the £6,000. So he's $6,000. He's already given up a massive 40 hours of his life needlessly, just to pay for the peace of mind that he's got health insurance. He does get sick, and even then, he still has to raise $7,000 on GoFundMe to actually pay. This is a system that's completely broken, and we're moving more and more towards it. And you mentioned there, this has been going on 40 years. This has been going on under Labour governments. This is not a partisan thing, like you say, but with Jeremy Corbyn coming up, you are pushing against an open door, and you're certainly going to get more resistance to this from his government, I would say. Wouldn't you agree, than you would if the Conservatives or any other party get in? Would that be a correct assumption?
Well, certainly if you look at their track records, and if you look at the policies that people like Corbyn, for example, have either opposed or promoted, absolutely. I mean, I was looking at one of the debates very briefly the other day. It was the ITV debates, election debates. And I can't remember there was who was standing in for Boris Johnson. I'm sorry, I don't know the name of the Tory. And he called, so this is as recent as a week ago, he called the idea that the NHS is at risk of privatization, quote, a conspiracy theory, right? He literally said that. And it's what can we expect from a party where that is the mainstream position, that the idea that the NHS is going to be privatized as a conspiracy theory, when, as people such as you and I know, even if we knew nothing before watching the documentary, we know now.